Hey everybody, so quick recap of kind of short session this morning that was unscheduled, taking care of some chores and some open source stuff. You might recall I had been working on this the other day with tcell, and it was all good. And so he said, write some docs and submit a PR. So that was the first thing I did. I submitted some I wrote some docs that describe how to use this driver nonsense, and then submitted the PR. Unfortunately, one of their checks pointed out that I use a syscall value that is, not available on Windows. And that value doesn't actually matter, so I guess I'll have to go and change that to get all these passing. But the other thing is, the other day, tview, which is a library that works on top of tcell that provides a bunch of components. I submitted an issue to allow you to change the screen that application uses, because they create a new tcell screen internally and they don't let you set it. And so if I want to use this, then I need to set it. So I submitted an issue suggesting a change, and they ended up sort of just doing it. They did it slightly differently. So it's kind of interesting. I suggested doing it one way and they did it another. So I'm kind of glad that I didn't like go in and just try and implement it myself. You should always do that, is when you want to do something on an open source project, say what you want to do and talk about the API changes before you do it. Sometimes they'll do it for you. So that was great. And then, so with all that working, I should have been able to get my interactive Go thing. If there's a blue one, there's a couple of recaps ago, you could see an example. You'll see in a bit. But basically taking my tcell SSH example that I used to get tcell working and bring that code into my interactive thing and actually use it with tview. And it worked fine, or it should have worked fine, except I didn't realize that. So I'd create the application, then I'd set the screen, but I didn't realize that when you run the application, it actually calls init on the screen, whereas I was calling init before. So all I had to do is take out that init, but I had to kind of go through the code because I didn't think that was documented anywhere. And then the other problem is I needed that code I needed init to run before I run this other stuff, but luckily I could just change my the driver that I made and give it a channel, and in its init I can signal to that channel. So then I just wait for it to be ready, and then I do all this stuff. Otherwise, these won't exist, and so it'll just exit. So I can run this really quick. And here we go. So it looks different than I was running it before, because normally I would run it in the terminal in this VS Code, and this I'm running in terminal. So, but I'm pretty sure part of the reason why those lines aren't connected and it kind of looks different, the colors are a little different, is because I don't pass the term environment variable through SSH, or I don't use it on the other end. So I think that's how I can resolve that. But anyway, here's a graphical user interface, terminal user interface that's working over SSH using tview, built on tcell, made possible because of my little open source contributions. So that was one little thing. And after getting that out of the way, I had another quick chore, which was getting my go live notifications to be set as well, because I started using them before. It's like, Jeff, program has gone live. But then I started changing them to being like, oh, working on some Golang or whatever, because I think that's what ends up in your email when you get notifications. And so I wanted to be kind of specific about what I'm doing, whether or not you want to tune in for it. And And so I thought it was just going to be pretty easy, like you would, you know, part of the resource that you update for this, it would have like a go live notification, but that's not the case at all. I spent a ton of time going through first their docs, and I couldn't find any resource that had anything in their docs. I think I found, what was it, Twitch go live notification API. Maybe this is it. So there's an undocumented API here that I figured maybe I didn't want to use. So that's why I started going through the GQL schema, but I couldn't find anything. I don't know how you would do this with GQL. Maybe it's called something else. So then I ended up just kind of looking to see what they actually do when you update it. So looking through the network calls, and it turns out they do use that endpoint here. And so looking at that request, it was a simple put. It just took notification type and message. And so I threw that into my my code here, update custom notification. And I ran it, and it turns out that it doesn't work for, you know, OAuth users. It said requires a first-party client, which is the same thing when we're using GQL. So I had this little tool that goes and starts up a browser and goes into Twitch and then grabs their first-party client and auth token and returns it, which I used with the Trello thing that uses the Twitch API through GQL. So I use that to get a client token here. I just had to update this do request to use that instead of my my token stuff for that particular request, and it worked. So now I can specify in my profiles roughly what I'm doing. Like Workbench is a lot of stuff, so I'll just say working on cool projects. But so that's it. And the other thing that I was trying to do but I didn't have time was, so there's that draw mode thing that I can come back to. Get a refresh token for Google. So when I use this and I run it pretty much every time, it saves a token, but that token pretty much expires immediately. So I end up removing that token file and then running it. I have to do that every time, and then it pops up the browser for me to click, you know, which user I want to get that token for. And so in theory, if I set it up correctly, it will get a refresh token. I can use that to get a new OAuth token instead of having to do that every time. So it's another chore I'll come back to, as well as fixing that term stuff. But that's it for today. Good to get some of those things out of the way. If you want to follow along on these projects and some of the other cool stuff, obviously subscribe to my channel, and you'll hit the little bell, you get notifications when there's new videos. Anyway, that's it. Thanks for watching. Bye.